Joining me now, we have two industry experts, David Toohey and Tom Roloff, here to talk with us about big data. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's really clear from that video that these guys made a huge change to how their company works. You know, to stay competitive, that was a big investment in big data, right? I mean, that's a gutsy move. How does that transformation take place in a company?
No doubt. I think it's really interesting to see that they stepped back from the process that they had originally, right? This is the way we used to design a car.
For a long time, right?
That's
this
right.
is a company with like
we've done it many
a century
times,
of
right?
history or something.
We're a medium-sized automotive company. We're competing with the big guys. We've got to come up with some advantage. The advantage they decided to come up with was we're going to integrate design, manufacturing, and engineering in a whole different way. We're going to create a collaborative environment. And when we do that, we're going to be able to shrink the cycle time of the development process. We're going to iterate faster. We're going to have more options and more opportunities to answer and ask the same question and get better and better answers and build a better product at the end of that, right?
And it's really interesting to see, how the technology was key to unleashing that value. The technology transformation enabled them to get this great vision they wanted to have
Which is, I think, the exciting part, right? For the idea that it's the technology architecture that's enabling a new business process that's creating a better product.
And it's the power of ID. This idea of industrial design has become such an important part of how people experience technology now. It's just amazing. Our phones are organic, and so the idea of being able to get in there and feel the car virtually in a cost-effective way and iterate, change something structurally in the car, and immerse yourself again in that car is just got to be completely freeing experience for the design side of the house, because the engineers on this car had to do some significant work just to make the back seats work. We're both tall guys. I'm 6'1", he's 6'3". We got to fit in the back seat of a car that's got that sloping roof. Significant amount of energy being spent, right?
I would have loved the idea, right, of you and I going in there to seeing a model, rotating it around and being like, look in there, that's what I'm talking about, right? That's the part you got to go help me engineer differently or manufacture differently or design differently, right? I mean, those would be fantastic things to go be able to.
And it's cool because it's a cave. It's the virtual reality cave. It's not
a
room, it's a cave, like Batman has a cave. And I just love that clip where they're just standing there and they're seeing the bottom of the steering wheel like they're little tiny people in this virtual car. It just shows you the amount of knowledge, the amount of data about that car.
We'll go put in the same sentence here, Steve Jobs and Jerry McGovern, right? I think the vision, right, to say it's got to be designed like this, right? I mean, Steve Jobs taught us that about the experience we have with a phone. And I think, that's the central piece there, right? The edict came to engineering and manufacturing. This is the way it's got to be. This is the experience we're trying to create. I hear those same kind of things coming from Jerry and the Evoque, and I hear us kind of saying we can't really compromise the design with the manufacturing. And we also can't compromise the engineering, right? It's obviously got to be a high-performance car. So
and maybe without those simulation tools, instead that beautiful design just suffers a death by 1,000 cuts, where some engineer has to go to the guy and be like, I know the roofline was pretty, but that was on paper. The car is actually going to look like this, and you got some ugly.
That angle can't work, right?
But instead you got this.
You're in the production line,
right?
right?
And now you've got these iterative cycles that are just so much shorter and so much more agile that you get that beautiful design, rolling off the line just like it did in the computer.
And the thing that I think was really stunning on this one is, the amount of data. We talk about this thing called big data. It's just unstructured data. It's a huge velocity of data. It's got a huge variety. Harnessing that and turning that into a simulation and delivery is one thing, but also the idea of running engineering studies against it so they could do the computational fluid dynamics, which is super geeky, but it's basically running air over the car to make sure you don't have...
You saw the little dots going over the roof.
No really weird vibrations. So not only do they capture the whole car virtually, but they can actually crash the car and simulate airflow over the car virtually, and it takes a ton of big data compute horsepower and storage horsepower to be able to manage that.
It occurs to me that as data proliferates, obviously you've got more data, but the connections between the data proliferate exponentially. So you've got, if you can, make new connections between different kinds of data, the variety you were talking about, you've got amazing opportunities that you didn't have 5 years ago.
And cars like the Evoque themselves generate their own data, right? So they generate sensor information about loads on the cars, right? That they can actually mine that data. So in the industry, we talk about this thing called data exhaust. It's machine-generated data, not even human-generated data. And it's actually an order of magnitude more than human-generated data.
I'm picturing it trailing behind the car, ones and zeros coming out of some port in the back of the car.
I mean, the car companies are saying, I'm going to put 10,000 sensors in a car. Right? 10,000 sensors that are sensing all the time. How do you take that information exhaust and do some analytics on it, right?
I assume it's not just automotive. I mean, the kind of potential we've seen here in the Evoque development model, I assume there's other kinds of manufacturing processes that could benefit the same way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an example of a green energy example. So there's a company called Vestas, very innovative company building wind turbines, large, power generating wind turbines, green energy. And they went out and upgraded their weather forecasting technology, and so they could get a better view of where the winds would be prevalent on various parts of geography. Because the idea is when you're buying one of these wind turbines, you want it to be windy. And so by having...
I can see how that would be a plus.
And that's how you help your investors who buy it get their return on their investment. And so they actually increased their technology by 10x performance to be able to get more accurate simulations of where the winds are going to blow, and therefore help reduce the risk for their investors who are buying the technology. It's an amazing example of both green technology, wind turbines, and high performance computing to generate a business result working together.
You're right. That's how the product's actually used by the by the
I think
client.
that's an emerging trend, right? That it's IT and big data architectures and high performance computing architectures that are affecting revenue streams. They're not just affecting the cost structure of the IT department, they're affecting the company's revenue stream, right? Where I place that wind turbine is going to be important. Other examples, right? In the pharmaceutical industry, huge big data problems about gene sequencing. We know all kinds of things about genes today. Pharmaceutical companies are saying, given that we know all these things about gene sequencing, what compounds have I developed historically that might create new therapies for new diseases, given what I know about genes, right? So I've got massive data files about gene sequences. I got historical data around compounds that I have. How do I bring those things together? How do I get new insights into perhaps a new therapy or a new drug or some new revenue stream that I'm creating?
Yeah, it's amazing. And just to give you some feel for this, IDC has projected this study called the Digital Universe. And it's an often quoted study, but it talks about the idea that we're going to go from 800 exabytes, which is a 10 with 18 zeros, that's a pretty big number.
18 zeros.
After it, right? Wow. To 35 zettabytes worth of raw data in the world by 2020. And that's a 50x increase, of data. And that's the definition of big data. A zettabyte is a 10 with 21 zeros after it, right? It's it's just, you can't even get it all on one page, and that's the big data problem that we're going to be facing here. So really, it's about how are you going to solve that? And I think the benefits have been pretty clearly articulated from the McKinsey study, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's really about the opportunity to make that happen. And IT is going to be the guy.
And just to review, the McKinsey study says
that you can
incredible savings in.
Yeah, go ahead.
What were the numbers?
It's like 50% reduction.
I think in the manufacturing industry they came up with a use case, right? It said 50% reduction in the cost of manufacturing a new product, and something like a 7% saving in the capex associated with the environment that you're using to build that product. Thinking about a business process and shrinking the cycle time of that business process and getting to market earlier, how much money is that worth? How do you save that?
And it's really about agility, right? In the end, these guys want to be more nimble. Time is money, right? And this technology study just reinforces that.
David, Tom, thanks for being here with us today. I hope to see you back here soon.
No, thank you. It was great.
Looking forward to it, guys.